Welcome to our Weaverham Cluster Virtual Assembly. For those who don't know me, I'm Paul Finney and I work for the Vale Royal School Sports Partnership as the PE and School Sports Coordinator for the Weaverham Cluster. I'm also a teacher at Weaverham High School. As we couldn't bring our athlete friends into our cluster schools this term, we wanted to share with you a virtual assembly. During our assembly, we'll be able to find out lots of information about our athlete today, and we'll even be able to ask them questions sent in by a number of you. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce you to an individual who, as a long-standing tandem pilot within the Great Britain Paracycling Programme, has Paralympic, World and Commonwealth Game medals to his name. And I think that answers one of the questions from the children. And wait till you listen to this. Gold medals from the 2014, 2015, 2016 and 2019 World Paracycling Track Championships. Commonwealth Games silver medalist 2018, and also a silver medal from the 2016 Paralympic Games. Pete Mitchell, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's quite a grand introduction. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much for telling everyone kind of what I've been up to. Yeah, that was very, very extensive. Thank you very much for having me along. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you all today, a little bit about kind of what I do, how the current situation has affected me, and yeah, kind of a little bit about me as a professional athlete. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you all.
So, Pete, before we get started, born in London, live close to Manchester. Do you like football?
Someone once told me that whenever you get asked that question, say yes, and then whenever they say who you support, you say, I'm not going to tell you, because whichever way you answer, you lose most of the room. So, yes, and I'm not going to tell you.
Right. So, I've been doing a little bit of research before this interview, and it's really clear to see that you've had an incredibly successful career to date as a tandem pilot. But I'm really interested. What is a tandem pilot, and what do you do, and what is your role?
So I'm a tandem pilot. I compete in the Paralympics. So what that basically means is I ride on the front of a tandem bike, a bike for two people, and the person on the back is visually impaired. So that can be anything from partially sighted to completely blind. Everyone kind of competes in the same class. We all sort of race against each other. So my role is a few things. Obviously on the bike, I do all the steering. So there's a big part of that. The power I put through the pedals makes us go faster. So I need to be as kind of strong and as fit as I can be. And then potentially as well, there's kind of a part of working with somebody who's visually impaired. Now, the two guys that I tend to work with have quite a good level of sight in the visually impaired world. So they're kind of very rarely need actually any guiding. But often it's not the case, and people are completely blind. And then there's a role there as well with helping them get about from time to time. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Brilliant. The bike, I'm interested in the bike. So you're saying that you're saying you put all the power through the front pedals, your partner as well. How's the bike set up? What's the difference between your bike that you ride and sort of just a single bike?
So there's two wheels and then there's two handlebars. So that kind of gives us each somewhere to ride. We've got two sets of pedals and essentially it's really simple. There's a chain connecting my pedals to Neil's or James's, and then there's a chain connecting their pedals to the back wheel. So it's all linked together through called the link chain. So basically all the power I put through the pedals kind of gets transferred into their pedals, which then gets transferred into the back wheel. That's basically it. It's a lot longer than normal. It weighs about twice as much. But other than that, it is still a bike. There's just two people on it. You know, that's kind of the big differences.
Fantastic. And how much, if you don't mind me asking, how much would the racing standard bike that you guys ride, how much would it cost to make?
Well, so I mean, we had those developed ourselves. So included in that price is all the research and development that went into designing and making the bikes. So you can't purchase our bikes. I'm not quite sure what's happening with Tandem. There's a rule where you have to be able to purchase all equipment you might use at the Olympics, and that has some implications on the Paralympics as well. But I mean, roughly speaking, we're talking several tens of thousands. So 30, 40,000, something in that region, including the development cost. So to make more is less, but it's that kind of number because they have to work out, I mean, in terms of torque, like as an actual strength, a human has a lot compared to, for instance, a car. So I might put out 500 Newton meters of torque. And if you Google that, that's actually similar to like a Ferrari or something in terms of torque. And when there's two of us on there, you think how much stress that is going through the bike is a lot. So a lot of time and effort goes into designing a bike that can actually stay strong with all that force going through it. Now that sounds a bit crazy. Obviously, the power of a Ferrari is clearly very, very different. But the actual torque, Google it, check it. It's not actually that far away from what a human can produce. If you've ever seen kind of a rugby team doing a tug of war against a Ferrari, well, that's your evidence. It doesn't take that many people to beat it.
So it's certainly not a bike that you can just pick up down at Evans Cycles or anywhere like that.
No, and you can go for a nice leisurely ride on a bike like that for sure. But when you get kind of big people, big powerful people who train a lot, sprinting as hard as they can, it would just twist around like a bunch of cooked spaghetti underneath you.
You mentioned there your partners, Neil. Is it Neil Fashy? Is that right? Have I pronounced his surname right? And James Ball.
Yeah, Neil. And
I'm interested. How did this partnership come about then? What's the process that you go through to ending up working with Neil and also James as well?
I mean, to be honest, it's very simple. They're just members of the team, members of the Great Britain cycling team, as I am. So we kind of basically put together the fastest bike. So try and work out who's the fastest pilot, who's the fastest stoker. They go together, and then at the moment there's 2 pilots and 2 stokers. Well, sorry, there's actually 3 pilots now. So then they kind of work out a second bike, and that's it really. So there's no kind of personality questionnaire to figure out who you're best suited to. It's just who's the fastest gets to go together really.
Fantastic. And again, having a look through, you had a really successful junior career up until under 23, and then I noticed you made the transition in 2012 to become a tandem pilot with the GB paracycling squad. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it came about because I was training kind of for the Olympics with the able-bodied kind of the Olympic training team. And then I got dropped from the program. I basically wasn't good enough. That's the sort of short version of it. It's a long version of it as well, And I genuinely enjoy what I do. Like whenever I go to a school, I say, how cool would it be if you could get paid to ride your bike? Put your hand up if you'd want to get paid to ride your bike, and it's a fun thing. And that's kind of how I see it. It gets a bit more complicated than that, but that's why I started, and that's why I want to carry on doing it. And the only way I knew how I could continue within the system was to kind of apply to be a tandem pilot. So I did that, and it turns out I'm kind of better at it, and I enjoy it. It still provides fantastic racing opportunities on a big stage, and the opportunity to be part of the Paralympic kind of movement. It's all good stuff, really. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily, I can't sit here and say, when I was a child, I dreamed of winning the Paralympics, because why would I? I haven't got a disability, but it just kind of happened, and I love it. It's one of the best decisions I've made.
Brilliant. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of go back a few years to sort of when you were a child. So, what was life like growing up in the Pete Mitchell household then? Were your parents supportive about you doing activity? Were you a physically active young child?
Yeah, I was, and I just kind of did everything. My parents, I'm just thinking from a cycling point of view, my parents are incredibly supportive in driving me around the country and kind of helping fund and pay for stuff, and trying to get the balance right of encouraging me without pushing me, and that kind of whole parent bit you've got to do. So I was really lucky. Like, I was very well supported. I was active. I just kind of tried everything. So I did lots of sports until I was about 14, 15. I kind of did. I played squash a lot. We had good squash facilities near us. Very little bit of kind of rugby and badminton. I enjoyed racket sports, and then when it got a bit more serious, when I was kind of 14 or so, I stopped most of them to just do the cycling. And of course, like, through primary school, all through secondary school, I engaged with school and PE, and I've been asked kind of what PE was to me, I suppose, because it's a bit of a funny one, because of course cycling, you can't really do cycling in PE, because unless your school's got a velodrome. So for me, like, the real competition, where I wanted to perform, where it felt important, was the racing at the weekends. And then PE was just a brilliant opportunity to be competitive with my friends in a place where it didn't really matter if you won or lost. So obviously I was very happy when I won, but if I lost, I was just trying to beat my mates. So it became a really nice place to be competitive, try different things without any kind of consequence. It didn't matter if you won or lost, basically, which is kind of really how you want to be all the time when you're in sport. Doesn't matter if you want to lose, but PE is kind of the easiest place to do it, because it really doesn't. So yeah, that's kind of my involvement, I guess.
So you're saying at 14 and 15, you kind of made a decision to cut back on all the other sports. At the time before that, were you representing school teams? Were you representing teams outside of school? And how did you feel about, if you were, how did you feel about telling them that you could no longer take part and you were just going to focus on the cycling?
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't particularly. I mean, put it like, I can't really run very well. So if you can't run very fast, it kind of limits you in a lot of things. So I played football and stuff, but I was never good enough to play for the school. Saying I did a few competitive things for, like, as I said, I played badminton a bit, but I just wasn't very good, to be honest. It's just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at other things. So I don't know if I even ever represent. I think I played 2 rugby matches and was hopeless because I didn't really understand the rules, So no, in short, I wasn't like the kind of leading the way in sport competition, and it's just because I wasn't very good. I was okay at kind of rounders and stuff, a bit of school sports day, whatever, but not like kind of county level or anything like that. Cycling's very much my thing.
So I'm glad you just said that. So how did you get into it then? So who got you into it? How did you get into it? And what was the kind of pathway and progressions that you went through?
So near me, I found my local Go Ride club. It was because I didn't know what Go Ride was, but a friend of mine said, "Oh, I go for a ride at the weekend. Do you want to come along?" And we used to go out on the hills near me where I grew up. And then sort of I raced with that club, and then they had what they called the talent team back in the day. This is a long time ago now. But British Cycling was basically looking for talented young riders to kind of coach and support and stuff, and that still exists today. So when you kind of get to the age of sort of 14, 15, it's called the apprentice program now, but essentially it still exists at British Cycling are looking, and it's the same for you guys now. If you wanted to try cycling, you just need to look on the British Cycling website and search for your local Go Ride club is the name of the kind of initiative, and then that's basically a club where you can go and learn to ride a bike, learn bike skills, riding in a group. They'll go on to racing skills as well, but it's for young people, really. It's for kids and young people. And then also, where I grew up, there's no velodrome. There was a track in Brighton where I kind of grew up that was big. It wasn't far from an Olympic standard kind of place. But obviously here you're so close to Manchester. And I think when you're 8 years or over, you can try the taster session. So you just give them a call and book on when things go back to being open. I think on a Thursday evening, I think it's 5 till 6 on a Thursday. You can just go and have a go, and it's like 10 quid or something. So it's not particularly expensive to have a go on the Commonwealth Velodrome. So yeah, it's kind of pretty accessible to have a go at it. Don't get me wrong, you can spend 10 grand on a bike, but to have a go at it and see if you like it, it is quite easy to do, really. Yeah.
So I've got so Josh, who's in year 6 at Croton School, would like to know, how old were you when you first started racing? And also, he'd like to know, have you ever come last?
Thanks, Josh. That's a really nice, positive question. So I first started racing when I was 13. I started riding that club I mentioned when I was 12. You know what? I don't know if I've ever come last. I've definitely come second to last out of like 40 people. I tried mountain biking for a bit, and I'm a sprinter, so my race now lasts a minute. And to be honest, that's on the long side of what I like. So I did like an hour's mountain bike race, which was horrific, and I'm heavy and not very good. So I wasn't very good at that. I don't know if I actually came last though. But to be fair, yeah. I don't know where to go from there. I hope that answers the question. I'll leave that one there.
And Ella, who's also from Croton, but she's in year 4. She'd like to know, what advice would you give to somebody wanting to get into racing?
Oh, it's very much go for the kind of find your local club. Find your local club. So there's a really good club at Manchester Velodrome called Sport City Velo. That's kind of your go-to club if you wanted to try track racing. If you want to do mountain biking, anything like that, it's all about finding that local club, and they'll give you kind of ways of learning how to race, learning the skills you need, and then they'll go together to races as a group. So you've got people and all that kind of stuff. So you're not getting chucked in at the deep end where it's all big and scary and everyone looks like they know what they're doing and you don't. You'll kind of get looked after through it. So I very much look at engaging with your local club.
We've got a question here from Isla from Little Lee. She's in year 6, and what she would like to know is, what advice would you give to a child that wants to become a professional athlete?
Thank you, Isla. That's a really good question. I think with all these things, to be a professional athlete seems so far away, and how do you even begin? And at some point, think about, right, what's the plan? How are you going to get from where I am today to where I want to be? And then what does that mean I need to be doing in 5 years' time? What does that mean I need to be doing in 1 year? And then what does that mean I need to be doing next week or tomorrow? And kind of how can I do the best things I can? So if you're going to be a cyclist, just to use a sport I know, if you want to be a professional cyclist, you need to be getting on the Great Britain team when you're 16, which means you need to be racing by the time you're 10 or 11. So you need to be kind of getting involved with a local club now. And that makes it much easier to kind of work out how you're going to get where you want to be by having a very rough plan, a bit of a plan, and think, right, okay, so if I do that tomorrow or today, then I know I'm giving myself the best chance of it happening in 10 years' time. So that's kind of how I go about it. There's no secret formula to being a professional athlete. You just got to kind of do the best you can today, essentially. Sounds easy, but obviously there's a bit more luck involved and all these things, but you're certainly going to give yourself the best chance, I think.
I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I had a few role models. I'm a Liverpool fan, so Kenny Dalglish was a massive role model. Elliot, who's in year 5 from Sandyway, what I'd like to know is, who was or who is your role model?
When I started riding, I didn't have a role model because, to be honest, I started riding because I like riding my bike, not because I've seen it on TV. So I kind of found my own way through it, It wasn't like I saw something on TV and thought, I want to go to the Olympics. When I started racing, I'd never seen it before. I kind of, went to the velodrome and that was the first time I'd seen it. Since then, Sir Chris Hoy has very much been kind of the best role model I've had in the sport, I would guess. I've met him quite, I know him reasonably well. And he's a nice guy, that's kind of what you want from a role model, right? He's a nice guy. He's had a lot of success. He's had a lot of opportunity to get a bit kind of, I guess, arrogant or whatever, but he's a nice guy, and, that's kind of what everyone aspires to be, right? A nice guy. so Chris is, I guess, is my role model.
Fantastic. You've clearly dedicated your life to cycling and you've worked extremely hard to achieve the successes that you have achieved. But what we're really interested in is what goes on behind the scenes. and the pupils from Cuddington Primary School would like to know about your training. How much training do you do in a week? What does a typical training day look like?
So, I mean, normally I'd go into the velodrome 4 times a week. Probably have 2 or 3 track sessions and 2 or 3 gym sessions, depending what our kind of training goal is at that time. And each of those sessions is about a couple of hours. And then at home, I do probably 2 road rides a week on the local roads. So it adds up to about 20 hours a week. And what we do is completely different, but depending what training we want to do. But essentially, we're looking to get big and strong, powerful, and be able to sprint for a long time. So that's kind of the gist of what we do. Behind the scenes, I thought you were going to ask if I've got any hobbies and stuff, and I was going to say, I don't know if you can see from the kind of corner of my room here, I've got 3 little kids who they are my hobbies. So away from the cycling stuff, I'm charging around after them. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought you were going to say from behind the scenes. Lots of glitter and fluff and paint, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny you mentioned your 2 children. A couple of weeks ago, I look at the BBC Sport and I go on the app on the phone, and I was scrolling through, and before I even knew we were doing this interview, I clicked on it. Said GB cyclist working out at home, and I clicked on it, and funnily enough, it was your workout that you were doing with your children. So, what's it like being an internet sensation now?
Yeah, I know, because when you did the introduction, because they put that clip on the news, and then that then got shown on Gogglebox, and for all the you read out a list of achievements. To be honest, in most people's eyes, I think it should just say Pete Mitchell was on Gogglebox for 2 seconds, because I got more messages about that than anything else, I think. So yeah, I wouldn't quite. And it's funny as well, because when you go to schools, people say are you famous? It's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not at all. So yeah, it's good fun. My mum loved it. The grandparents absolutely love seeing the grandkids on TV, and yeah, it was a good bit of fun in all the craziness that's been going on.
So how did it come about then? Was it just sort of like the children running around? How can I keep them entertained, or was it spontaneous, or did you kind of plan what was going?
Yeah, I love that you think that as an athlete, the entertainment for my kids is just getting them in the gym. No, so British Cycling said that essentially they've got a whole media team, who usually cover races, talking about all the race results, all the races, interviewing riders around races. Now there's no racing. So they basically said that if you've got any ideas of stuff that we think might have a nice impact and make somebody smile, then send the video in. So I thought, I think my kids are cute. Maybe other people will as well. So get them in the garden, throw them about a bit, and make a video out of it. And it was well received.
I loved seeing when you had the twins and when you were doing the squats, they were just giggling their heads off. That was just fantastic.
Yeah, they love it. They absolutely love it. So yeah, it was very, very good fun. And to be fair, my 3-year-old, she does say every morning, "Can we go and work in the garden and do some gym?" So they've got the ab rollout kind of wheel is their favourite toy at the moment. So I don't know what I'm creating there. A couple of monsters, I think.
What would you say are your main qualities that have kind of helped you throughout your career then?
I think as I've got towards the end of my career, I feel much happier about things, because I feel like I manage what I do with my time a bit better. So what I mean by that is when I'm not training, I don't think about training. I think about enjoying time with my family, enjoying whatever makes me happy, trying to shut off from it, and I try and put myself in a position where if cycling disappeared from my life, it's just a great memory. So I guess they're the kind of skills that I have, if you like, and stuff. And it's so hard to get perspective when you're not old. But just remembering to kind of, think about what you enjoy and do the stuff you enjoy, and that's it really. It's bit of a wishy-washy answer, but it is whatever works for you,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think enjoyment, to just have an enjoyment in whatever you do, is extremely important. No doubt about it. Again, when I was looking through your achievements, 2016 was an interesting year, and you'd been the favourites. You'd just won the gold. Am I right in the paracycling track championships, going into the Paralympics as favourites, and you finished silver medal. And it kind of ties in with one of the questions from Elliot in year 5 in Sandyway. I would imagine you were disappointed with that. You'd set your sights on gold. How do you, or how did you handle any disappointments? You mentioned previously as well that you were told not that you couldn't progress with the program, and that must have been a disappointment. How do you handle them?
It's hard, you know. I think the silver medal at Rio really did hit me hard, and it felt like we just lost, you know, as opposed to, it wasn't we won silver, we just lost, and it was quite hard. I think, you know, different. There's no secret to getting over failure or disappointment. It's about, you know, just looking at the situation and kind of making a plan. For me, that honestly, the thing that kind of changed the way I felt about the silver medal was when I went on the local school tour. I came to all the schools locally in the area, and you know, thousands. I think I saw 8,000 kids or something. Thousands and thousands of kids, so excited to see what I achieved really. You know, I gave the example earlier where kind of one of the children was learning to read Braille, and he came to the front of the school, and he felt the back of the medal and read out the Braille that it said on the back, and the whole school stood up and cheered. And like, for me to be able to have that impact on a child who's going through something really difficult, and to be part of the Paralympic movement that's, you know, kind of changing perspective of the way people see disability, being kind of normal and inspirational and all good things, and not something to feel uneasy about, because you see amazing people doing amazing things and know that that's kind of, it's just the whole thing just works, you know. The Paralympic works, and that moves on to society and how we see people every day. So for me to be part of that, yeah, I got a silver medal, but why am I sad? You know, why am I sad that I got a silver medal to have a tiny part in that massive experience that affects so many people's lives? So that's genuinely, it was the kids, it was you guys getting excited about what I do that made me get over that weird place I was in, because I only got silver, you know. So don't get me wrong, I was sad at the time, but that was an easy hole to get out of, because there was so much excitement when I came home from the community around me, basically. You know, in terms of different times need different things to help you get through that place. And you know, I think everyone's going through a weird time right now, you know. The things that usually mean you have a good day might have disappeared. You know, you do well at school, that's a good day. Your teacher says you've done a good job, that's disappeared. And it's really hard to actually understand, how do you know if you've had a good day? You know, how do you know if you've done the right things? Because nobody's telling you what to do. Nobody's kind of watching over your shoulder. And the way I kind of look at it is, think about the things you want to do in a week. So that would be play with your friends in whichever way you can do that. It will be watch TV. It will be to do some school stuff. It will be to spend some time with your family. It will be to eat some things that are good and eat some things that aren't very good. And over the course of the week, do what feels right. Kind of, you know, almost write down what you want to do, but kind of do what feels right. And when you get to the end of the week, look back and think, right, was that a good week? Did I do those things that I said I wanted to? And if you've missed something, say you've lived off Chris for a week, well, clearly you've done the not very good bit, but you haven't done the good bit, have you? So next week you're going to try a little bit harder to, you know, to kind of eat well, have a healthy life. Equally, if you feel like you've been stressing about school all the time because you're not seeing your teacher, well, then where did you make time to enjoy, you know, socializing with your friends or spending time with your family? And if you kind of just think about it like that, and not make like a really detailed plan, but just kind of have a bit of a kind of thought about what you're doing, and it makes such a big difference instead of being lost in kind of the big emptiness of what's going on. That's kind of the way I look at it, and that's what helps me keep a balanced life with the madness of the kiddies running around and the pressures of cycling and all that stuff as well. So I hope you find that kind of useful as a way to look at things.
Definitely. I must admit, I do enjoy watching the track cycling. I think you guys are incredible athletes. Um, and but the one thing that kind of the intrigue is when we get those occasional bumps and crashes and stuff like that. And we've got a question from Cuddington Primary School saying, "Have you ever fallen off your bike?" Is the first one, and then there's a question to continue from Josh in Year 6 at Croton, who would like to know what has been your worst cycling-related injury to date.
Fantastic. Another positive question. So, yes, I have crashed. Not very often, and fortunately, touch wood, not for a while. The worst crash I had, I got hit by a car. So nothing to do with racing. I got hit by a car. Nothing major. Concussion and kind of a sore back for 6 months, but nothing kind of broken. I've had a couple of big head injuries from crashes as well, probably which didn't help with the car crash I had recently. The head injury, it's all kind of adding up. So I've hit my head a few times as well. Only bone I've ever broken was my cheek. I fell off and fractured my cheek. But other than that, nothing kind of, it's not been too bad.
Thank goodness to hear that. We've got a question here from Elliot from Sandyway Primary School. What he'd like to know is who was your biggest sporting rival?
Well, I mean, in terms of who was, obviously, I am still going, and the British cycling team is the best in tandem power sport. So so it's very much internal. So the guys I train with every day are the ones who are my biggest rivals. We've won every World Championships for a long, long time. So Lewis Stewart and Matt Rotherham are the two names. So they're the two other pilots. Lewis has come in more recently. Matt's been around for a good couple of years, and a bit younger than me. They're kind of on the up. I'm obviously was right in the mix, and they've had this injury with a car crash I had recently. So yeah, they're my biggest rivals. And I think one of the biggest challenges for us is getting selected on that fast bike. If you're on the fast bike, you've got a very, very good chance of winning, but it's very difficult to get there. So I'll do my best.
So when does that selection process happen then? When will you find out? I know when you're going to go back, but are you working towards some championships at all?
Yeah, so obviously things have changed now. So originally, the last event would have been January or January 2020, and then they would have made a selection on who would ride with who soon after that, and then the bikes would formally get selected in May. Obviously, that's somewhat been thrown out the window now. So next year all will look similar to that, but we just don't know. There's obviously no plans in sport at the moment. So potentially our World Championships are in Rio in March 2021. But there's a whole world of what might happen between now and then. So I'll just have to wait and see.
You clearly lead an active lifestyle, and so what are you doing now with this current situation with the pandemic that's going on? What are you doing now to stay fit and healthy, to keep yourself active?
Yeah, so I've got some dumbbells, doing some bits in the garden. It is far from ideal. I've got a smart turbo, so I'm hooked up to Zwift. If anyone's seen Zwift, taking over the world at the moment. So I pedal the pedals, and the little avatar man on screen rides around and goes up and down hills and all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing that. It's far from ideal. Part of that is my rehab for my head injury as well. So that's kind of impacting the training as much as anything. So yeah, it's been impacted in a big way, but obviously for me, it's kind of a good thing because before I was unable to train properly because of the head injury, and now nobody's able to train properly for various reasons. So in a way, it's not been a bad thing for me personally. Been quite good fun.
Get to spend some time with the family as well, because I would imagine you've travelled all over the world, and family time is very precious to you.
Yeah, I mean, parasport is a developing sport generally. So we have a couple of races a year. They are often international, but usually one of them will be abroad. So I have travelled over the years quite a few places, but it's not a massively, I'm not on the road all year at all. I probably spend, in a non-Paralympic year, maybe 2 or 3 weeks away from home. In a Paralympic year, it might be 8 or 10 weeks, but it's not crazy. It's not on the road. There's just not the racing for it. And it's very, very much a sport of train lots and lots and lots, race once a year is basically how it works. So it's quite consistent and good for family life, if I'm honest.
Great. So I've got another question here. Jake, who's at Whitley Village Primary School in Year 1, he would like to know, what was your first bike?
You know what? I don't even know. It was a BMX and it was red, but other than that, I have no idea. So I'm going to say a red BMX. That's my final answer.
Brilliant. Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for our Weaverham Cluster Virtual Assembly. I've certainly learned a lot of interesting things and facts about you. I think the one thing that strikes me is you're a very, very level-headed individual who's able to put things into perspective, who's able to deal with the successes and the disappointments on a really level playing field. You're extremely passionate about your sport, and you seem to have this wonderful work-life balance, which is great. I think you come across as you fully appreciate you're in this really wonderful position where you can do your hobby professionally, which is wonderful. So basically now for the children and for the staff at the primary schools, it's over to you. What will you do as a result of watching today's virtual assembly? We want to encourage everybody to attempt the daily challenges that we post. You can find out about these on our website or social media accounts, so watch out for the links at the end of this assembly. Pete, have you got any last messages for the children and families from the Weaverham cluster?
Yeah, I guess firstly, I hope everyone continues to stay safe during this time. Look, I think what sometimes when someone appears on a big screen, it looks like they're on telly, and it's a bit weird, and you think, how does this? What message do I actually take? You know, what can I actually listen to this guy who's a cyclist? Well, because I'm not telling you lot to go out there and be cyclists. You know, that's kind of is not so literal. It's not listen to what I say and try and do what I do. And I think what I hope is that you just think, okay, so let's put some thought into what kind of makes me happy. What thought, makes me have what I would consider a good week. And as I said, that's probably changed from what it was before. And then try and do that, just so that you kind of stay happy and balanced and doing lots of different things and kind of see this time as a good opportunity to spend some time with your family, even though, let's be honest, it is a bit weird. And to some extent, we're all looking forward to it ending. For sure. So good luck going back to school whenever the time comes. I'm sure many of you are very keen to get back and see your friends. And thank you for having me for your assembly. It's really, really good to speak to you all. So thank you, everyone.
Pete, thank you ever so much. And thank you, the children and the staff from the primary schools. Thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you very soon. Stay safe.